They are
Royal
here
Guard
every day
Police
until
immediately
4.
puts a stop to
You can usually get a
THIS and
photo if you
protects
ask
horse.
nicely.
Horse
That's
Guards,
wonderful.
Royal
Thank you
Guard.
so much, officer.
People from all around the world had gathered near the famous Horse Guards Parade, a historic and iconic site that stood at the heart of the city. The square itself was a mix of stone pathways, neatly trimmed lawns, and the unmistakable presence of history. Tourists walked slowly, cameras ready in their hands, eager to capture every detail of the day. Some were chatting quietly with friends or family, while others paused to admire the magnificent architecture surrounding the parade grounds. The sound of footsteps echoed softly against the walls of the nearby government buildings, creating a sense of anticipation that seemed to ripple through the crowd. Among the visitors, there were children holding onto their parents' hands tightly, their eyes wide with wonder. They had heard stories about the Royal Horse Guards, the soldiers who wore shining helmets, polished boots, and bright red coats. These soldiers were not only known for their strict discipline, but also for their courage, strength, and respect for the horses they rode. The children whispered excitedly to each other, imagining themselves riding one of those large, majestic horses, just like in the fairy tales they loved. Parents smiled at their children's curiosity, careful to guide them along the pathways so no one wandered too close to the horses before the ceremony began. In the center of the parade ground, the horses themselves were already visible. They were enormous and powerful, their coats shining under the sunlight. Some were black, others brown or white, but each one carried a sense of pride and strength. Their manets were carefully brushed, tails braided neatly, and hooves polished until they gleamed. Even standing still, the horses radiated a quiet energy, as if they knew that something important was about to happen. The animals shifted occasionally, snorting softly, their ears moving to catch every sound. They were highly trained, but still alive with instinct, aware of their surroundings and the crowd that had gathered to see them. The Royal Horse Guards themselves stood in formation nearby, their posture perfect, their eyes alert. Each guard held their weapon carefully, not in threat, but as a symbol of readiness and discipline. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, yet there was a warmth in the way they treated the horses. A gentle touch to the animal's neck, a calm word here and there, revealed the bond between soldier and horse. This relationship was built on years of trust, patience, and training. The crowd could sense it, even from a distance, and many visitors leaned forward to get a better view, fascinated by how these enormous animals and their equally disciplined human partners seemed to communicate without words. Tourists were snapping photos constantly, some trying to capture the perfect angle of the soldiers and their horses. A few were filming videos, narrating quietly to their cameras, describing what they saw as if they were reporters. "Look at that horse," one woman whispered to her friend. "It's so calm and majestic." Another visitor, a young man from another country, adjusted his camera carefully, making sure he could record every detail. People were respectful for the most part, keeping a safe distance, but the excitement was contagious. Every little movement of the horses, every shift of a guard's stance, seemed to create a ripple of awe and admiration throughout the audience. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, the parade ground grew busier. Street performers nearby entertained the crowds, while vendors offered snacks and drinks. The smell of freshly baked bread and pastries drifted across the square, adding to the sensory experience of the day. Children tugged at their parents, pointing excitedly at the horses and guards, asking endless questions. "Why do they wear shiny helmets? Can we touch the horses? Are they real soldiers?" Parents answered patiently, sometimes laughing softly at their children's endless curiosity. Tourists whispered to each other, comparing notes about the impressive sight before them. Everyone could feel that they were witnessing something very special, something that combined history, discipline, and a living connection between humans and animals. Then, slowly, the Royal Horse Guards began to move. The sound of boots on the stone pavement created a rhythmic pattern that echoed across the square. The horses followed their riders, stepping carefully in perfect unison. The crowd's whispers turned into quiet awe as they realized the precision and coordination required for such a performance. Each movement, from lifting a hoof to turning a head, was deliberate and controlled. Even the children, who had been running around moments earlier, stood still, captivated by the grace and strength of the animals. The guards did not speak loudly. Their commands were short, sharp, and efficient, but the horses responded immediately, a testament to the deep training and trust between them. Among the crowd, a few individuals grew a little too curious. One young man, perhaps unaware of the danger, leaned over the rope barrier to get a closer look at one of the horses. The horse's ears twitched, and its body stiffened slightly, signaling discomfort. Nearby, a guard noticed instantly. Without hesitation, he moved closer, positioning himself between the horse and the man. The guard's presence was calm but firm, an invisible line that reminded everyone that, although this was a ceremonial display, safety was paramount. The man stepped back, sheepishly realizing that he had crossed an invisible boundary. Throughout the morning, the royal guards continued their duties with the same unwavering attention. They mounted and dismounted, adjusted their positions, and guided the horses through a series of ceremonial movements. Each action was performed with care, not only to maintain the tradition of the parade, but also to ensure the animals remained safe and comfortable. It was clear that the guards treated the horses not as tools, but as partners, respected, valued, and protected. Their interactions were subtle yet full of meaning, a silent dance between human authority and animal instinct. Visitors watched with fascination, taking note of how smoothly the soldiers and horses worked together. The children whispered excitedly to their parents, asking questions about the horses, training, and diet. Some adults took notes for personal interest or simply to share with friends back home. Photographers moved quietly, careful not to disturb the balance of the parade. Even the sound of cameras clicking did not startle the horses, a sign of their incredible discipline and trust in their riders. Every little detail of the scene seemed alive, a perfect blend of history, skill, and respect for living beings. By mid-morning, the crowd had grown even larger, and the energy of the place was electric. People whispered and laughed, sharing their impressions and pointing out small details they noticed about the guards' uniforms or the horses' gleaming coats. The royal guards continued their routine, completely focused yet perfectly composed, always keeping a careful eye on the animals. Any sudden movement from the crowd was immediately noticed, and any potential hazard was addressed with swift action. The horses, calm and alert, moved with elegance, their powerful muscles rippling beneath their coats. Every hoof step and every gesture of the riders showed a blend of strength, training, and mutual respect. As the morning progressed, the parade ground became more than just a tourist attraction. It became a stage where history, tradition, and careful attention to detail came alive. The royal guards were not just performing for show. They were demonstrating the deep bond between humans and horses, showing how discipline, respect, and awareness could create something truly remarkable. Visitors left with a sense of wonder, realizing that what they had seen was not just a display of skill, but a living story of trust, courage, and care. Even as part one of the day ended, the scene was set for something unexpected. The crowd's excitement, the horses' alertness, and the guards' vigilance created an atmosphere filled with anticipation. Everyone could sense that this was a place where history met the present, and where every action mattered. The stage was ready, the players were in position, and the story of courage, protection, and respect was about to unfold in a way that no one would forget. As the morning continued, the crowd at Horse Guards Parade became more lively. The sun shone brightly, reflecting off the polished helmets of the royal guards and the glossy coats of their majestic horses. People were smiling, chatting, and pointing at small details in the uniforms and horses. Children clung to their parents' hands, eyes wide, mouths slightly open in awe. Tourists moved carefully around the parade ground, cameras and phones raised, trying to capture every precise movement. The horses stood proudly, heads held high, alert yet calm, sensing that their riders were completely in control. But amid the excitement, not everyone was paying full attention to the rules that kept the horses and the public safe. A few tourists, carried away by the thrill of being so close to such magnificent animals, began to step closer than they should. They wanted a better photo, a selfie with the horse, or simply a closer look at the shining boots and polished helmets of the guards. The guards noticed immediately. Every officer's training included vigilance, not just for ceremonial purposes but for real-life situations. Their eyes swept the crowd, scanning for any hint of danger. Suddenly, a small commotion caught the attention of one of the guards. A young man, clearly excited and unaware of the potential risk, leaned over the rope barrier and reached toward one of the horses. The horse, sensing the intrusion, flinched slightly. Its ears flattened back, nostrils flared, and its large eyes reflected caution. It was a subtle warning, but the trained guards knew exactly what it meant. The horse felt threatened. Immediately, one officer moved closer, his boots striking the pavement with authority but without haste. His presence alone created a clear boundary between the animal and the intruder. "Please step back," the officer commanded firmly, his voice calm but unmistakably serious. The crowd fell quiet for a moment, sensing the tension. The man froze, realizing that he had crossed an invisible line, but curiosity still glimmered in his eyes. Some spectators held their breath, unsure of what would happen next. The horse shifted slightly, its muscles tensing under the control of its rider. It was a moment of suspense, a quiet drama playing out in front of dozens of watchful eyes. The officer didn't wait. He raised one hand in a gesture that was both protective and commanding. "Do not touch the horse. Stand back," he said again, keeping his tone controlled. The horse, guided by the gentle pressure of the reins and the rider's firm commands, calmed gradually. Its ears perked forward, and its breathing returned to normal. The young man, finally understanding the seriousness of the situation, stepped back and muttered an apology. The officer gave a nod of acknowledgement but did not relax his stance. He knew that in this environment, even a single moment of carelessness could have serious consequences. Around them, the crowd was silent, watching closely. Many visitors whispered among themselves, commenting on the professionalism of the guards and the calm authority with which they handled the situation. Children, wide-eyed, pointed toward the officer, asking their parents why the horse had moved. Parents explained that even the largest and strongest animals could feel nervous or frightened if people approached too closely. The guards' quick action had ensured that everyone remained safe, including the young man who could have been hurt if the horse had reacted differently. The parade continued, but the atmosphere had shifted slightly. The crowd, previously relaxed and chatting, now maintained a respectful distance. Cameras clicked less frequently, replaced by quiet observation. The horses, sensing the energy in the crowd, remained calm but attentive. They moved in perfect synchronization with their riders, demonstrating the incredible training and discipline that went into preparing them for such events. Every hoofbeat, every turn of the head was measured and deliberate. The onlookers could see that this was more than just a ceremonial display. It was a careful balance of tradition, control, and care for living creatures. Meanwhile, the young man who had caused the commotion remained nearby, watching quietly. Perhaps he had learned a lesson about respecting boundaries, but he also couldn't take his eyes off the horses. They were magnificent animals, strong yet elegant, and their connection with the guards was undeniable. The officer who had intervened returned to his position, standing tall, observing both the crowd and the horses. His focus was unbroken, a quiet reminder that the safety of the animals and the people came first. The tension did not end there. Another group of tourists, unaware of the first incident, moved closer to the horses, talking loudly and gesturing wildly. One of the guards noticed immediately. This time he didn't wait for the crowd to notice. He stepped forward, walking deliberately between the tourists and the horses, using his presence as a barrier. "Please stay behind the rope," he said calmly but firmly. The group looked surprised, but they quickly complied. It was a lesson in respect and caution, demonstrated not with anger but with authority and composure. The horse near them remained calm, ears flicking occasionally, trusting the officer's control. As the morning progressed, the crowd's energy ebbed and flowed. Children pointed, tourists whispered excitedly, and some continued to film the scene for later memories. The royal guards moved with precision, their uniforms gleaming, boots shining, and horses moving perfectly in line. Each guard's eyes were alert, scanning for any potential disruption, any moment that could compromise safety. It was a careful dance, humans and animals working together, guided by experience, training, and trust. The officer who had stopped the first incident took a moment to check on the horse, patting its neck gently and offering a reassuring word. The horse relaxed immediately, sensing the calm and authority of its handler. Such moments were small but critical, showing the deep bond between the soldiers and their animals. It wasn't just about ceremony, it was about understanding the horse's needs, emotions, and limits. Visitors could see the trust in the horse's eyes, the confidence in its stance, and the respect in the officer's gestures. It was a living demonstration of care, patience, and responsibility. In the distance, another officer communicated silently with his fellow guards, pointing to areas of the crowd that required attention. Coordination was key. One misstep, one distracted moment could cause panic or injury. But the guards remained calm, moving as one unit, their training evident in every action. Horses followed commands without hesitation, riders responded instantly, and the crowd slowly adapted to the rhythm of the parade. It was a delicate balance, yet it seemed effortless, a testament to years of experience and dedication. The young man who had caused the initial commotion now understood the importance of respecting the animals and the guards. He watched as the horse moved gracefully across the square, controlled by the experienced rider. He realized that what he had witnessed was not just a display of pageantry, but a lesson in responsibility. The officer who had intervened gave a small nod, acknowledging the young man's understanding, and then returned to his duties, always alert, always ready. By late morning, the parade ground had transformed into a space of calm order, despite the earlier tension. Tourists and locals maintained safe distances, cameras were used responsibly, and children whispered questions politely. The royal guards continued their movements, guiding the horses through intricate maneuvers with precision. Every turn, every step, every slight shift of the reins was controlled, deliberate, and safe. Visitors marveled at the harmony between man and horse, understanding that discipline, respect, and care were what made this ceremonial display possible. Even as the parade continued, the sense of vigilance never faded. Each officer knew that their responsibility extended beyond ceremony. It included protecting the animals, maintaining public safety, and preserving the dignity of the tradition. The horses, trained but sentient, responded to this care, moving with grace and confidence. Their trust in their riders was evident in every stride, a silent testament to the bond formed through patience, training, and respect. As the morning drew on, the crowd began to appreciate not only the pageantry, but the lessons being demonstrated. The importance of boundaries, careful observation, and respect for animals became clear. The officers, through their calm authority and quick responses, showed that true strength was not in force alone, but in vigilance, care, and understanding. The horses, magnificent and alert, became more than just participants. They were partners, deserving of protection and admiration. And so the morning passed, with tension replaced by admiration, excitement balanced by respect, and curiosity tempered by understanding. The royal guards continued their work, the horses remained calm and majestic, and the crowd learned a valuable lesson. True bravery and skill are shown not just in grand movements, but in the quiet, decisive actions that prevent harm and maintain trust. The stage was set for even greater challenges, as the day was far from over, and the story of protection, courage, and respect was just beginning to unfold. The morning air was filled with anticipation, and the crowd at Horse Guards Parade had grown noticeably larger. Tourists, locals, and school groups all stood quietly, cameras ready, their eyes fixed on the magnificent horses and their disciplined riders. The royal guards moved with precise coordination, their boots striking the stone pavement in perfect rhythm, their helmets reflecting the sunlight. The horses, strong and majestic, followed each command effortlessly. There was an unspoken harmony between horse and rider, a partnership built on years of careful training, trust, and mutual respect. Despite the beauty and calm, there remained an underlying tension. Some visitors, overwhelmed by excitement and curiosity, were still unaware of how quickly a situation could turn dangerous. People edged closer to the ropes, hoping for a better view or a perfect photo. A group of teenagers, laughing and joking, moved too near to one of the horses. Their energy was lively, but it drew the attention of the guards immediately. Experienced eyes scanned the crowd, recognizing the potential for trouble before anyone else could react. Suddenly, one of the horses, a powerful black stallion, flicked its ears sharply backward. Its muscles tensed, nostrils flaring slightly, and it lifted one hoof with a subtle warning movement. The crowd gasped softly as they noticed the horse's sudden change in behavior. Though still calm, the animal was clearly uncomfortable. One of the royal guards, positioned nearby, acted immediately. His boots struck the pavement with authority as he stepped forward, placing himself between the horse and the approaching group. His presence alone created a protective barrier, signaling both to the horse and the crowd that a potential danger was being handled. "Step back, please," the officer commanded in a firm, steady voice. His tone carried the weight of authority but was not harsh. The horse's rider gently guided the animal with the reins, offering reassurance through soft words and subtle pressure. The crowd watched in silence, the tension thick in the air. Even the teenagers, realizing that they had crossed an invisible line, froze, their laughter fading. They glanced at the officer, then at the horse, suddenly understanding that this was not a performance for entertainment. It was a carefully managed display of skill, discipline, and safety. The horse, sensing the authority and calm presence of the guard, slowly relaxed. Its ears moved forward again, nostrils widening as it breathed more evenly. The officer did not relax his stance, however. He knew that in this environment, even a single careless moment could have consequences. One false move could startle the horse, and in that split second, someone could get hurt. His eyes scanned the crowd again, watching for anyone else who might act without understanding the situation. The experience, training, and instinct of the guard allowed him to anticipate danger before it could happen. The tension heightened when one of the teenagers, curious and still eager for a closer look, took a small step forward. The horse shifted slightly and the air seemed to tighten with anticipation. The officer raised a hand calmly but decisively. "Do not come any closer," he said. The words were simple but firm. The teenager hesitated, glancing at his friends, then slowly stepped back. The officer's authority was absolute, yet delivered without anger. It was a display of skill and confidence that commanded respect from both humans and animals. Around the perimeter of the parade, the crowd murmured quietly. Tourists whispered to each other, explaining what they were witnessing. Children pointed excitedly but remained safely behind the ropes. Many adults noted the professionalism of the guards, admiring their ability to act quickly and decisively without creating panic. Cameras were raised, not just to record the ceremonial display, but also to capture the quiet heroism unfolding in front of them. It was clear that this moment would leave a lasting impression on everyone present. The officer did not stop at simply holding the line. He moved closer to the horse, speaking softly to its rider and checking the animal's response. His hands adjusted the reins gently, offering subtle guidance that kept the horse calm and steady. The stallion's massive body relaxed under the careful handling, its breathing even, muscles loose. The officer's actions demonstrated not only authority but deep knowledge and respect for the animal. The crowd, witnessing the interaction, could see that the horse and its rider trusted the guard completely. This was not just a ceremonial display. It was a moment of real care and protection, performed flawlessly under pressure. Meanwhile, the teenagers had regrouped, unsure of what to do. Their excitement had been tempered by the presence of authority and the visible skill of the guards. They whispered among themselves, realizing that they had almost caused a serious situation. One of them, wide-eyed, asked quietly, "Was the horse going to kick?" His friend shook his head, acknowledging that they had acted without thinking. The officer, still attentive, noticed their conversation but did not react harshly. He understood that this was a learning moment. Sometimes, the best lesson was taught through observation and experience rather than scolding. The tension in the parade square was heightened further when another group of spectators moved too close to the line of horses. This time, the officer coordinated with his fellow guards. Through small gestures and careful positioning, they created a protective barrier around the animals. Their movements were synchronized, a silent communication that ensured both the safety of the horses and the crowd. The horses, sensing the unity and confidence of their handlers, responded with calm obedience. Each step was deliberate, controlled, and safe. The display of coordination and authority was mesmerizing to the audience, a living lesson in vigilance and teamwork. At that moment, a younger horse, slightly startled by the sudden movement of the crowd, lifted its head and pawed at the ground nervously. The officer nearest to it stepped forward quickly, placing himself between the horse and the crowd. His hand rested gently on the reins, while his eyes swept the area for any further signs of risk. The horse, guided by his calm presence and steady touch, relaxed gradually. It was a testament to the bond between guard and animal, a silent reassurance that everything was under control. The entire episode lasted only a few tense minutes, but it felt longer to those watching. Children clutched their parents' hands tightly, some whispering prayers of relief. Adults, previously distracted by their own excitement, now fully understood the seriousness of the guards' responsibility. The professionalism displayed was remarkable. The ability to act quickly, decisively, and without panic was a clear sign of years of training and dedication. The horse, powerful yet controlled, became a symbol of the balance between strength and trust, discipline and care. As the crowd began to settle, the officer gave a subtle nod to the horse's rider. The stallion, reassured, lowered its head slightly, relaxed its muscles, and resumed its careful, precise movements in the parade. The officer returned to his original position, but his eyes never fully left the crowd or the horses. Vigilance was continuous, not intermittent. He understood that one moment of distraction could undo all the careful control they had maintained. His focus was unwavering, a quiet but powerful presence that ensured everyone remained safe. The incident left a lasting impression. Spectators whispered about the bravery and skill of the officer who had stepped in to protect both the horse and the people. Children asked questions about the training of the guards and the intelligence of the horses. Tourists captured the moment on cameras, sharing it with friends and family around the world. It was a reminder that heroism did not always come in grand gestures. Sometimes, it came in the calm, decisive actions of a single individual who understood responsibility and acted with care. The parade continued after the tension had passed, but the energy of the morning had shifted. The crowd, now more aware of the importance of boundaries and respect, maintained a safe distance. The horses moved with their usual elegance and precision, guided by riders and protected by vigilant guards. The professionalism and authority displayed in those few critical minutes had reinforced the delicate balance between spectacle and safety. It was a living lesson for all, an unforgettable moment that combined courage, skill, and compassion in a way that only the royal guards could provide. By mid-morning, the parade square had regained its rhythm. Visitors smiled, children whispered excitedly, and cameras clicked once more, capturing the beauty of the ceremonial display. Yet beneath the surface, everyone remembered the tension of the earlier moments. The horse had been protected, the crowd had been safeguarded, and the officers had demonstrated the highest level of professionalism. It was clear that their role extended far beyond ceremony. They were guardians, not just of tradition, but of life and safety. Even as part 3 of the day came to a close, the sense of anticipation lingered. The crowd had learned an important lesson. Respect, vigilance, and calm authority were essential when interacting with powerful, sensitive animals. The officers had proven that their training was not just for show. It was a necessity, a way to ensure that both humans and horses could coexist safely in a shared space. The stage was now set for the next chapter of the day, a moment that would further highlight courage, quick thinking, and unwavering dedication. The tension of the morning slowly began to fade, but the atmosphere at Horse Guards Parade remained charged with a sense of awareness. The crowd, now quieter and more cautious, had witnessed something that went beyond a simple ceremonial display. They had seen the quick, decisive action of the royal guards, the calm authority that protected both the horses and the public, and the deep trust between humans and animals. People whispered to each other, sharing their impressions, pointing out the officers' calm demeanor and marveling at the discipline of the horses. Yet, even as the immediate danger passed, the royal guards knew that their work was far from over. The parade continued, and the large, powerful animals remained sensitive to every movement, sound, and gesture in the crowd. The officers' eyes swept the area constantly, scanning for any signs of distraction, mischief, or danger. One guard in particular stayed close to the black stallion from earlier, his posture alert and ready. Though the horse appeared calm now, the memory of the brief tension lingered in its movements, a subtle stiffness in the legs, a flick of the ears toward the crowd. The guard understood that animals, like humans, remembered stressful experiences, and they could react quickly if startled again. The young man who had leaned over the rope barrier earlier remained nearby, standing quietly at the back of the crowd. His excitement had been tempered by the officer's firm warning and the visible readiness of the guard. He watched intently as the horses continued their movements, realizing that what he had nearly caused could have been dangerous for both him and the horse. His friends whispered to him, pointing out how smoothly the officer had handled the situation, and he nodded, silently acknowledging his mistake. The officer noticed him but did not approach. Instead, he kept a watchful eye, ensuring that no one else repeated the same error. For the horses, the next few minutes were a test of patience and trust. Even after the initial incident, they remained alert, responding carefully to their riders' commands while maintaining awareness of the unpredictable crowd. The guards, understanding the importance of reassurance, continued to provide gentle guidance, speaking soft words, adjusting reins lightly, and offering small pats or touches to calm the animals. Each interaction was deliberate, showing respect and understanding. Visitors could see that this was not a performance for entertainment alone. It was a demonstration of the careful balance between discipline, care, and vigilance. The crowd gradually began to settle, but subtle disruptions still occurred. A child, curious and full of energy, ran slightly closer to the horses than allowed. An officer, stationed strategically nearby, stepped forward calmly, his presence enough to redirect the child back to safety. A parent quickly followed, thanking the guard for his guidance. These small moments of potential disruption reminded everyone that maintaining safety was a continuous effort. The Royal Guard's role extended beyond ceremony. They were teachers, protectors, and guides, showing respect for the animals and ensuring the well-being of all present. Meanwhile, the Black Stallion continued to respond to the calm authority of the officer. Every hoofbeat was precise, controlled, and smooth, a sign of its trust in both the rider and the guard. Observers noticed the subtle interactions, the slight pressure on the reins, the soft words whispered by the rider, and the guard's attentive stance. These small details demonstrated a bond formed through patience and mutual respect. The horse was not simply following commands. It was participating in a partnership that required understanding, empathy, and vigilance. The teenagers who had caused the earlier commotion watched quietly from a distance, their curiosity now mixed with admiration. They whispered to each other, pointing out how every movement was intentional and precise. One of them asked softly if the horse had been scared, and his friend explained that animals could sense energy and react to it. The officer overheard but did not intervene, recognizing that this was a learning moment. Through observation, the teenagers were beginning to understand the importance of boundaries, respect, and patience when interacting with animals and authority figures. As the morning continued, small challenges arose. Another horse, slightly younger and less experienced, reacted nervously to the movement of a camera flash from the crowd. The officer closest to it noticed immediately, stepping between the animal and the source of disturbance. He guided the horse gently, offering reassurance through a calm voice and subtle rein movements. The horse's tension eased, muscles relaxing and breathing returning to normal. The crowd, noticing the intervention, murmured in admiration. Again, it became clear that every action by the officers was deliberate and necessary, combining authority with care to maintain safety and harmony. The Royal Guards continued their movements with disciplined precision, each step measured and synchronized. Even as small disturbances occurred, they managed the parade seamlessly, demonstrating that vigilance was not reactive alone, it was proactive. They anticipated potential disruptions, adjusted their positions, and communicated silently with one another, forming an invisible network of protection. The horses responded to this structure naturally, moving confidently and gracefully. For the visitors, it was mesmerizing. They were witnessing more than ceremony. They were observing the mastery of human skill, animal intelligence, and mutual respect in real time. The incident earlier had also highlighted the importance of crowd awareness. Parents began holding their children more carefully, tourists respected the rope boundaries, and photographers approached with greater caution. The lessons were subtle but effective. Respect the animals, heed the instructions of the officers, and understand that safety and care were just as important as admiration and curiosity. For the guards, this awareness made their job slightly easier, but they remained vigilant, knowing that even a small lapse could trigger an unexpected reaction from the horses. Time passed, and the morning evolved into a rhythm of calm observation and careful action. The officers walked among the horses, ensuring that each animal remained comfortable and focused. Subtle gestures, a pat on the neck, a gentle tug of the reins, or a soft word, kept the animals reassured. The crowd watched in fascination, noticing the trust between horse and rider and the protective authority of the guards. Every small interaction reinforced the delicate balance between discipline and compassion. Even after the initial disruption, the black stallion remained the center of attention. Its rider moved carefully, guiding the animal through precise formations while the officer nearby maintained a protective presence. Each movement was a demonstration of control without force, authority without aggression, and vigilance without panic. Spectators could see the confidence in the horse's eyes, the careful attention of the guards, and the smooth coordination of every motion. It was a lesson in patience, respect, and understanding that resonated with everyone present. The teenagers who had caused the initial tension now fully appreciated the responsibilities of the guards. They whispered quietly, discussing the precision required, the need for vigilance, and the trust between horse and rider. One of them asked softly if the guard was always this careful, and the other nodded. They understood that safety was not a momentary concern, but a continuous responsibility. Through this observation, the young visitors began to internalize the values of discipline, patience, and respect, lessons that extended far beyond the parade ground. The morning's experiences left everyone more aware of the complexity behind what might have seemed like a simple ceremonial display. Visitors learned that the guards' role was multifaceted. They were performers, protectors, teachers, and animal handlers all at once. The horses, in turn, were not simply props for a show. They were living partners, requiring attention, care, and respect at every moment. The crowd began to appreciate the depth of skill, training, and empathy involved in maintaining such harmony. As the parade continued, subtle reminders of vigilance persisted. A sudden movement from the edge of the crowd caused a horse to glance toward the noise. An officer, anticipating potential stress, stepped forward smoothly, reassuring the animal and guiding it safely. Visitors noticed, many whispering their admiration. They began to understand that every motion, every command, and every glance was deliberate, combining authority with care, training with empathy. The earlier tension had turned into a live lesson on responsibility, safety, and respect. By late morning, the parade square had regained a steady rhythm. The crowd was fully engaged, observing quietly and respectfully. Children whispered to their parents, pointing out the disciplined movements of the horses, the shiny helmets of the guards, and the careful coordination of every step. Tourists smiled, some taking photos from a safe distance, others simply watching in awe. The royal guards moved confidently, every officer aware of their surroundings, every horse calm yet alert. The morning's events had left an impression that would stay with the crowd long after they left. They had seen courage and professionalism, care and authority in action. The officers' interventions, quick thinking, and calm control had prevented accidents, ensured the animal's safety, and maintained order among the spectators. More importantly, they had demonstrated respect for life, patience, and the value of vigilance. The parade was no longer just a spectacle. It had become a powerful lesson in responsibility and trust. Even as Part 4 came to a close, the day was not over. The crowd continued to admire the horses, and the officers remained watchful. The lessons of the morning, about respect, careful observation, and the balance between strength and care, lingered in everyone's minds. The stage was now set for the final part of the story, where the day would conclude with a sense of accomplishment, safety, and a lasting appreciation for the skill, discipline, and dedication of the royal guards and their magnificent horses. The afternoon sun shone warmly over. Horse guards parade, casting long shadows across the square. The air was filled with a calm energy, as if the tension of the morning had transformed into a quiet sense of respect and admiration. The crowd, now fully engaged and aware, watched the royal guards and their horses with renewed appreciation. Visitors whispered to each other, pointing out the graceful movements of the animals and the disciplined precision of the soldiers. Children clung to their parents' hands, eyes wide with wonder, while adults nodded in quiet acknowledgement of the skill and care on display. The black stallion, who had been at the center of the morning's earlier incident, moved with elegance and confidence. Its rider guided it through the final formations with smooth, measured movements. The horse's ears flicked forward occasionally, alert to the subtle signals from both its rider and the surrounding guards. Its muscles rippled under the sunlight, a clear sign of strength combined with training and trust. The officer who had intervened earlier remained nearby, a calm presence ready to step in if needed. His posture was relaxed, yet his eyes scanned the crowd carefully, ensuring that every angle was covered and that both animals and people remained safe. The young man who had leaned too close to the horse earlier now stood at a distance, his curiosity tempered by respect. He watched silently, absorbing every detail, the precise coordination, the careful commands, and the protective presence of the officers. He whispered to his friend, "I never realized how much work goes into this." His friend nodded, equally impressed, acknowledging that the display was far more than ceremonial. It was a combination of history, discipline, and genuine care for living beings. The officers noticed the quiet attention and subtle understanding of the visitors, but remained focused on their responsibilities, knowing that vigilance was essential until the day was fully complete. Throughout the afternoon, the parade continued with smooth, flowing movements. Each horse responded to its rider with absolute trust, following subtle commands and maintaining perfect alignment. The officers moved gracefully among them, offering gentle guidance and ensuring that each animal remained comfortable and confident. Occasionally, a horse would shift slightly, flaring its nostrils or flicking its ears toward the crowd. Each time, an officer would step in immediately, using a combination of calm authority, reassurance, and careful control to maintain harmony. The crowd began to understand the subtle dance taking place. Every movement, every gesture, every glance had meaning and purpose. Parents whispered explanations to their children, describing the bond between rider and horse and the importance of respecting boundaries. Tourists took photos from safe distances, capturing not just the beauty of the parade, but the moments of care and attention that went unseen in ordinary recordings. Children pointed out the officer's calm authority, noting how he had protected the horse without raising his voice or creating panic. Some visitors murmured to each other about the value of training, patience, and respect, realizing that these qualities were essential in every interaction, whether with animals or people. The earlier incident had left an impression that lingered throughout the day. The crowd had witnessed firsthand how quickly a situation could escalate and how skillful intervention could prevent harm. They saw that bravery was not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet, controlled, and perfectly timed. The officers had demonstrated courage, foresight, and dedication, protecting the horses, the public, and the integrity of the ceremony itself. Visitors slowly came to understand that this was not just a spectacle for entertainment. It was a lesson in responsibility, trust, and the careful management of powerful and sensitive animals. The young man who had nearly caused an incident earlier now approached a guard, politely asking a few questions about the horses, training, and the officer's responsibilities. The guard answered patiently, explaining the hours of preparation, the importance of understanding the animal's behavior, and the role of vigilance in maintaining safety. The young man listened intently, nodding as he absorbed the information. It was clear that this interaction had transformed curiosity into respect and observation into learning. The officer's calm, informative approach reinforced the idea that knowledge and awareness were as important as discipline and skill. Meanwhile, the horses continued their movements with poise and grace. The black stallion led its formation with confidence, perfectly aligned with the other animals. The sun highlighted the shine of its coat, the strength of its muscles, and the intelligence in its eyes. Each movement of the horse mirrored the precision and dedication of its rider and the attentive officers nearby. Spectators could see that the animals were not simply trained to obey commands. They were partners in a carefully coordinated effort, responding to subtle cues and trusting the humans who guided them. The mutual respect between animal and handler was palpable, an unspoken understanding that brought the entire parade to life. As the afternoon progressed, the crowd grew more relaxed, yet remained aware. The royal guards had maintained a balance of authority and calm, ensuring that the horses felt secure and the audience stayed safe. Small interactions, like a child pointing or a tourist gesturing for a photo, were managed seamlessly. The officers' experience allowed them to anticipate each movement, guiding both animals and humans in a dance of vigilance and respect. Visitors began to notice the quiet power of preparation, realizing that every step of the ceremony depended on careful attention, patience, and foresight. The black stallion, who had been tense earlier, now moved with absolute confidence. Its muscles flexed smoothly with each step, and its ears remained alert but relaxed. The rider guided the horse effortlessly, responding to every subtle signal and maintaining a perfect rhythm. Nearby, the officer maintained a protective stance, ready to intervene if necessary, yet allowing the horse and rider to continue naturally. The crowd watched with admiration, whispering about the skill, trust, and dedication required to achieve such harmony. It was a moment that combined beauty, discipline, and a sense of security, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. As the parade neared its conclusion, the officers guided the horses through the final formations. The synchronization was flawless, each animal moving in harmony with its companions, each rider responding to subtle cues, and each guard remaining vigilant yet unobtrusive. The crowd clapped quietly, acknowledging the skill and dedication on display. Children cheered softly, inspired by the elegance and strength of the horses. Adults nodded in appreciation, recognizing the depth of training, patience, and responsibility demonstrated throughout the morning and afternoon. The final moments were marked by a sense of calm accomplishment. The officers guided the horses to their resting positions, ensuring they were comfortable and reassured after hours of precise movement. The crowd remained respectful, capturing the last moments on camera or simply observing quietly. The black stallion, now fully relaxed, lowered its head slightly, nostrils flaring in a steady rhythm. Its rider patted the horse gently, reinforcing the bond of trust and care. The officer who had intervened earlier nodded subtly, satisfied that the animal and the crowd were safe, and that the ceremonial duties had been completed without incident. Visitors began to leave gradually, many reflecting on the lessons they had witnessed. Parents explained to their children that respect for animals, patience, and attentiveness were essential values. Tourists discussed the professionalism and dedication of the guards, noting how seamlessly they had handled potential disturbances. Children whispered excitedly about the horses' strength and grace, inspired by the display of calm authority and protection. The parade had become more than a ceremony. It had been an experience, a live demonstration of trust, care, and the power of preparation. The young man who had caused the earlier disruption remained for a while, watching quietly as the parade concluded. He approached an officer one last time, offering a sincere thank you for keeping the horse safe. The officer smiled, nodding, and provided a few final words of guidance about interacting safely with animals and respecting boundaries. The young man left with a sense of understanding and respect, carrying with him a lesson that would likely stay with him for years. As the crowd dispersed, the royal guards and their horses moved off the parade ground, their movements still precise but relaxed after the morning's events. The officers exchanged quiet gestures, communicating without words, and ensuring that every horse was calm and accounted for. The animals, reassured and steady, followed their handlers willingly, a testament to the trust built through careful guidance and consistent care. Visitors continued to watch from a distance, capturing photographs and sharing stories about what they had witnessed. The lesson of the day had been clear: courage, vigilance, and respect for life could prevent harm and inspire admiration simultaneously. By the end of the day, the Horse Guards parade had returned to its usual quiet majesty, the echoes of the morning's excitement lingering in the minds of those who had attended. The officers' professionalism and calm authority had left an impression that went far beyond the ceremonial display. The horses, magnificent and alert, had been protected, guided, and respected throughout the day. The audience had witnessed not just a parade, but a living example of responsibility, trust, and the careful balance between strength and compassion. Even as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm glow across the parade ground, the lessons of the day remained vivid. Visitors walked away with stories to share, memories to cherish, and a deeper understanding of the work, dedication, and care required to maintain such harmony between humans and animals. The Royal Guards had fulfilled their duty with honor, ensuring safety, demonstrating discipline, and protecting the horses under their care. It was a day of vigilance, courage, and empathy, an unforgettable moment for everyone who had witnessed it.